Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning. Well, it is for me anyway. Mark is coming to you today from the Hinterlands, from the remote destination of is Westfall, Colorado? Where are you?
West Cliff,
West.
7,865 feet up in the air. So yes, I'm going to drink a lot of coffee and drink a lot of water today. I'm out here for a wedding of one of my team people, of one of my
Oh,
employees.
that's fantastic. And as you said, it is absolutely gorgeous there, right?
It is, and also happy birthday, Meredith.
Thanks. All right, you ready to start the show?
Ready to go.
Prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
All right, so apparently I did the old intro this morning. Good to have that one back up there. All right, thanks so much, Natalie. And so glad you are here on the show. Before we dive in, I want to tell you how the show works. Now, those of you who show up every week, you know it, but we want to start the show with a question from you, the audience. We want to feature you right here on Sales Logic because that is who the show is for. We cover a hot topic, we recommend a book, and because we want you to leave with return on investment, we have a lightning round. So, Mark, what's up today?
Well, the topic, the one, not two, the one strategy guaranteed to get more effective sales results. And it's going to be interesting to compare yours with mine because I have a feeling we could be the same one. But anyway, hey, the question today comes from Lucia in Norway. She says, I listen every week. Love the podcast. Thank you. So my team needs training, a lot of training. Some are stuck doing the same sales process they have always done in jobs they were in before they came to work for my company. Where do I start? What training would be most effective to get the team moving and successful again? Okay, I threw that into the brain, and the brain came back with some pretty good things. First of all, it said, hey, questioning techniques. You really got to work on communication skills because I have a feeling that they're not, or the Sales Logic brain says, that they're not questioning the customers enough. And in so doing, they're not listening. Now, why? Because they don't have enough industry knowledge. So, Lucia, you're going to have to work on discipline and focus to get them around those three. And when you're doing that, continue to work on the integration of marketing and sales. With that, you'll be able to build better relationships. Your people will be able to build better relationships. And then you just keep continuous learning. Don't stop, Lucia. Anyway, what do you got to help Lucia and her team out?
Yeah, so I really do think sales comes down to one thing. If I had to strip every single skill away that you had, if I was going to focus my team on training anything, I would focus them on listening. I think you can be ignorant about the industry. I think you can be clueless about product knowledge. If you can listen, you can hear pain. And when you hear pain, you can ask other people who have product knowledge and industry knowledge how to solve that. But I think far too often, salespeople are so good at product knowledge. They are so good at asking questions. They are so good at prospecting. They are so good at all those things that they completely forget to listen. And I think it is one of the most vanilla words for one of the most powerful skills a human being can have.
Okay, I'm going to build on that, and I'm glad you said what you did so we don't overlap. This is good because my whole thing is follow up, follow up, follow up. Because you've been listening, you have the ability to follow up, and I'm going to echo on what you said. We get salespeople who are so confident around the product knowledge. Oh man, the product knowledge just kills. How many sales meetings have you attended, Mary, where it seems like all they're doing is teaching the salespeople about the product? No, let's teach people about the customer and how to listen. You know, it's interesting. The customer will educate us if we listen. What does that mean? You've got to be continuously following up, continuously conversing with them, continuously talking with them. Lucia, you focus on those two things, and I think it's going to be amazing at what your team will be able to do.
Let me further explain what I mean by listening. We think that listening means I ask a question and the customer answers. And it isn't that at all. What I mean by listening is you have to be paying attention to everything that is going on in the room. This years ago, when Rob was still in practice, he had made a decision to buy a 6-figure piece of equipment. He'd already made the decision he was going to cut a check for over $150,000. That was done. That sale was made. And he headed down to 2 salespeople. And he asked me to come into the office and listen to both of them present and help him decide which one to go with. And he was going to do this on a Thursday because he worked a shorter day on a Thursday. So the first salesman showed up at 3:00. I got to the office about 2:30, but Rob had a really bad day. First patient was late. Second patient had an emergency. He was an hour and a half behind by the time I got there at 2:30. So the first salesman's there at 3:00. I bring him back to the office. We talk a while. Somewhere close to 5, Rob walks in. And the salesman can see that Rob is tense. He is stressed and everything. That salesman took it as the opportunity to pitch Rob as fast as he could pitch him because he knew Rob was tired. Here was the problem. He wasn't listening to what was going on with Rob. And he pitched the product really, really fast. And I could tell by the look on Rob's face, he was not listening to this guy at all. Second salesman comes in, looks at Rob and says, Dr. Powell, I see you've had a bad day. And Rob goes, yeah, I've had a bad day. And the salesman says, well, why don't you grab something to eat? I've got all day. I'll do whatever you want to. We can even postpone this meeting. And for the next 45 minutes, Rob whined to the salesman about how bad his day was. They never talked about the product. They never talked about anything. And he ended up going with the second salesperson. So what I mean by listening is you've got to read the client. You've got to read and pay attention. The most urgent need my husband had that day was not to buy a product. It was for somebody to empathize with what he was going through. And if you miss that sign, you can't sell crud.
See, that is so beautiful, that story that you shared, because it comes down to that line that I've always said, the best presentation ever made is the presentation never given. And I can't stress that enough. It's about listening to 360. Listening 360 means just what you described. Not only are you listening to what the person is saying, but you're sensing the environment. What else is going on around there? And when you understand the full picture, it is amazing at how you can begin to understand where the customer's coming from. It's not your product knowledge. Your product knowledge is absolutely secondary because it's totally meaningless if you don't have that connection with the customer. So I love where this is going. Now, I got a question for you. Did that first salesperson ever realize that he was out?
Never. It was so painful to watch, and I felt like running to the car with him and saying, because what you need to understand, had that situation been flipped and it would have been me in the situation, he would have been the right salesperson, because I don't want to do any of that other stuff. Yeah. I would have wanted to get right to the point, but he missed it. Andy, I love that you have a listening exercise. I'm going to fail this because I fail every single one of them. I just did one the other day with Brad Lee, and it took me forever to figure it out. But here's the listening exercise, audience. If there are 5 bottles of Coke on the floor and I take one away, how many bottles of Coke do I have? You have 1 bottle of Coke because there's still 4 left on the floor. Is that right, Andy?
I'm going to say Andy still has 5 bottles of Coke because he took one away, but there's still 5. So, this is so key, because what we're doing is we're listening 360. And that first salesperson was so fixated on the product, the presentation. The presentation was the salesperson's product. This is where we make absolutely big mistakes. Bryn Tillman jumps in. She talks about how social selling is a great way to learn a ton. In the recall planning phase, it is, because again, we learn where the customer is coming from. This is so key. If we don't understand the background going in, And this is where I'm going to pick up on what I said, the one thing in terms of follow-up, because I want to be able to take what conversations, what things we learn and play it out. For instance, that second salesperson, I'm sure once that salesperson got the sale, next time he conversed with your husband, Rob, he referenced back, hey, hope you had a better day than you had that day I was in here. I'm sure he linked. You see, one of the cool things about following up is you link conversations together. And when you do that, you demonstrate far better listening skills. Andy jumps back in. He says, you're good. Everyone says 4. See, I'm going to say 5 because I still got 4 and I still got 1. But then again, I'm just the optimist.
No,
So
here's what I love about this, Andy. Lucia, if I were you, I would run my team through listening exercises. Andy, the only reason I really paid attention as closely as I did on this one, and the only reason I got it right, was because I failed that one so badly that Brad Lee had on a podcast. But here, because I did the same thing the very first time. If there are 5 bottles of Coke on the floor and I take one away, how many bottles of Coke do I have? If you're not listening, you say 4 because you see 5 bottles and 1 taken away. But I thought that can't be the right answer, so I need to listen more actively. And when I listened more actively, where the trick is here, if there are 5 bottles of Coke on the floor and I take 1 away, how many bottles do I have? That's 1. So you ought to run through. I mean, we don't listen. We just don't listen. And because of that, we really, really, really miss opportunities with customers.
Okay, and I'm going to say that listening results from the questions we ask. So in other words, how do we confirm our listening? How do we build on our listening? It's by asking questions. That second salesperson that was talking to your husband, he was, I'm sure, asking questions about his day and letting your husband share. And then taking some of that information and building on it. See, this is this whole thing, key thing. You have to ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, you're going to be like that first salesperson, just running through the presentation. And let me tell you something. You know, I used to do a lot of sales training, and I used to say that if you, the salesperson, are talking for more than 20 seconds at a time, you're talking too much. In other words, every 20 seconds, there needs to be some reason for the customer to enter into the conversation. And if you can't get the conversation where it's minimally 70-30, the customer doing 70% of the talking and you doing 30%, there's little chance that you're going to be successful, because we've got to flip it over to the customer. Because if the customer doesn't respond, there's no sale. The first salesperson caught up in their product knowledge. Yes. Hey, I love what Bryn is jumping in, even small things happening on a Zoom call. And, and the salesperson's first question, where do you live, rather than I see you are from. Okay, now this brings up a lot of interesting context, because I'll tell you what, if somebody gets on a Zoom call with me and they start playing all this chit chat, how's the weather? I get turned off. I know you get turned off too on it, right? Because you want to dive right into it. You see, other people want to get, so it's really understanding the context, understanding the framework that the customer is coming from very quickly. And again, Bryn, this is why what you talk about is, so go back into social media, see what you can learn, see if there's some insights you can use. Sam Richter's Intel Engine. Use insights to help you understand going into the sales call, how that person might respond.
Yeah, I love what Bryn says here. It's telling is that your line of questioning, listening, what Bryn's whole point here is that listening starts before you ever get on the sales call. And I can't tell you how many times, Bryn, I have been caught with my pants down on this one. Like, I get on there and they say, like, people love my background when I'm at my home in Asheville. And they'll say, where are you from? Where are you based out of? And I'll say, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. And then I think, holy crud, I should know where they're based out of. If I had done any of my research, I should know where they're based out of. I can't ask them where they're from, because it is going to reveal how little work I have done before this sales call. So you're so right, really having your I's dotted and your T's crossed. What that does is it just starts to build confidence in the customer that you listened before anything even got started.
That is so much information there, that even comes out in terms of the area code the person may call you or you may call them and you see that your area code. And I always do, where's that area code at? But then there's always the question of, is that area code where that phone number is that actually where they're at now? And again, a little bit of pre-call planning can help you verify as to whether or not their office is in that location, they're not there, whatever it might be. There's so much of this information, but it comes down to, are you listening? And then the question is, how well do you link that back to getting the customer into that front row seat of them sharing with you what it is they're looking for? Because that first salesperson jumped into what he thought was the solution. The second salesperson had a solution, but held it back. You know what's interesting? I think we do ourselves a favor when we resist putting our solution on the table until we have the customer leaning in, when they're leaning in, because they've shared with us so much of what they're looking for. And we got such a tight relationship that they're leaning in. Then I can begin to share with them. And I think our solution carries a lot more weight.
Yeah, see, I never know what the solution is when I go into a sales call because I don't understand what the urgent need is. And a lot of things that I talk about from the stage are the fact that until you solve somebody's urgent need, they're not going to listen to you. Like if right now, you had a way for me to make $1 million in the next week, but I'm on the side of the road with a flat tire, late for a tennis match. I am so not interested in how to make $1 million in an hour. I want to know how you get my tire fixed so I can get to my tennis match. As crazy as that sounds, that is the way that the customer functions. So often we do all of our research, we do all of our pre-call planning, and there's a million ways I can help Mark. I can really, really help him take his business to the next level. Like, let me give you an example. I've got a client I'm working for right now. And he desperately, we need to completely change how they recruit talent in the organization, completely change it. But the thing that is keeping him up at night is his top 3 leaders and a succession plan for them. And until I solve the succession plan, he is not going to listen to me about anything else. Here's the flip of that. If I solve that succession planning issue, he's going to listen to me about anything I want to do for him. Listening is about identifying the urgent need. Now, Andy, I got to admit, you got me on this listening exercise. If 3/4 pound of bread cost a penny and a half, how much does a pound of butter weigh? I got no idea.
We're going to wait for him to respond to that. I'm going to add something else in this, because if you're in the area of complex selling, long-term selling, think about what Mary just said. Because what I find so fascinating is that as I'm dealing with different people in the same organization, in other words, I might be selling, but I've got to be developing relationships with 6, 7, 8 people. Ooh, I love that. His answer, 1 pound.
Wait, I got to back this up. This just shows you how much I didn't listen. If 3/4 pound of bread costs a penny and a half, how much does a pound of butter weigh? Of course it weighs a pound. But I completely missed it because I wasn't listening when I read that.
Because we're caught up in that whole penny piece. We're caught up in that. And exactly, it's listening to it. And what I find very interesting, if you're into complex sales, you're going to find yourself that you're going to be hearing different things from different people. Now, does that mean there's different solutions? It could be. But the key is to allow these people to put all of their needs, their challenges on the table. This is what's so key. Don't rush yourself. This is why I say you don't come with a solution until you've got them leaning in. And Mayor, also, you said a keyword, urgency, because again, everybody can need stuff, but until I need it now, it's not necessarily urgent. And that is absolutely critical. We got a great conversation going, but we are burning time.
We are burning time. We better get to the book.
Yeah. Hey, the book. Okay, I got to admit, I came out with a new book this week, and I do want you. It's The Making of a Mind for Sales. I want you to pick it up. It's on sale right now out on Amazon. What I did was I took 33 of my quotes lifted from the book, A Mind for Sales, and put it into kind of a journal format. And it's called The Making of a Mind for Sales. We got a tremendous amount of content in there on how to be a top performing salesperson, a number of other things. So anyway, that book is out there. Grab it. We'll put a link.
Yeah, you need to grab it. I think, Mark, you did such a great job of reformatting the information, updating some of it. It is a great read. You really need to capture that book.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Hey, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
Top 10 strategies to be a more active listener.
Number one, follow Andy Greenberg and do listening exercises that Andy Greenberg throws out there.
Number two, listen 360. Listen for not only what is being said, but what is happening around the individual.
Yeah, I would say role play and practice. Like really, grab a partner and have a conversation and, see if you're capturing the right things.
Challenge yourself on the pre-call planning, as Bryn Tillman mentioned today in the notes. It's how much work are you doing ahead of time to understand information that you might be able to ask questions about, make comments about during the conversation.
Yeah, number 5, listen for urgent need. Try to figure out, treat the listening exercise as a game to try to figure out what the biggest pain point is.
Listen for the pain points to be repeated twice over multiple calls. I love this strategy because if I hear somebody talk about something one call, but they don't mention it next time, but if they mention it the second time I'm talking to them, that is truly a pain.
Yeah, I would say number 7, if you want to be an active listener, take some courses on emotional intelligence. Really try to get better at understanding how people communicate, how to read them, what's important to them.
Link every conversation. If you're having another conversation with them this week, link back to something that they shared with you in the previous conversation. That demonstrates to them that you are listening and value their input.
Yeah. Oh, am I at number 9?
You are number 9.
All right. Wow. It's hard to believe that I have a number 9.
Yeah.
I would say take a page from Bryn Tillman's book and craft your questions off the research and the listening that you did before having a conversation with the customer, so that you are already active listening before the call happens.
And number 10, take notes, please, people, as you are in these conversations, take notes, because it's amazing how one conversation will link to another. You may hear something somebody said in one industry. That's very interesting. And you're talking to somebody else, same industry. There may be ways that you can link that together. Hey, what does it come down to? It comes down to being focused on the customer, not on you. Or your product, I should say. Hey, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, please tell a friend, would you? Because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
And remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. Another great week. Mark, have a fantastic time at that wedding today. Yeah. Thanks so much, Natalie. You are always an awesome audience. Demi, I put up there that the book is A Mind for Sales. Just go out and find Mark Hunter on Sales Logic. Listen, we will see you all back here next week. Princess, so glad that you jumped in. Thank you so much for doing that. And Mark, you wanted to jump in.
And we're going to see many of you this coming Monday on our Sales Logic Mastermind monthly call, because we're going to be talking about price. If you're not part of the mastermind, go out to saleslogicpodcast.com. You're going to see all the information there. Get into the mastermind. We welcomed a new member this past week, and it's absolutely a terrific. And wow, we're adding some new tools to it too, which is absolutely cool. But
yeah, we'll talk a little bit about those on Monday. But we'll see you all right back here next week for another episode, another show, and another set of strategies to help you sell more effectively. Have a great week.